Are you ready to get unbothered? Sound check and then the kiss? You must really be ready. Let's get unbothered.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Rivera. I'm your host, Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. That right there is my water bottle. For anybody that's wondering, I make sure, or try to make sure, that I drink at least a half gallon of water, which is what that is. Like 2 of those is 1 gallon. So obviously that's a half. Really, I should have 2. I would like to be able to get up to 2, and I'll usually get about 1.5. But I make sure that I get 1. And believe me, right now we really need it in Phoenix because yesterday was. Which this is Sunday now. I'm recording this the morning of. Yesterday, it was 117 degrees before noon. And then luckily in the evening, we ended up having monsoon rain and it only lasted for a second. Right now, it feels okay outside. It's 7 in the morning, 6:56 technically. But yeah, it's unbearable. And so for me, I just stay in and do my thing. I don't know where anybody else keeps their AC. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I stay around between 67 and 69 degrees is where I'm at. So where people in New York, you're seeing on the news that they're telling people in New York just not to use their AC, I'd be like, yeah, right. That's not happening for me at all. And there's been a lot going on in the news, and I've been covering quite a bit of the Nolan Wells situation, and I'm going to do a video on that. Hopefully it'll be out later this evening, but I've got to go to the gym in a few minutes here. As soon as I'm done recording this, I'm going to go to the gym because, I've got to get that out of the way, especially the cardio part. Because it literally is getting so hot in Phoenix right now that I do not want to be outside. Like, I did all my grocery shopping the other day, and now I'm pretty good as far as just not having to leave. If I have to leave the place for odds and ends at the grocery store, that's fine. But at least I don't have to do full grocery shopping and lug everything from the car to my place. And yeah, so that's what's been going on. And it's weird to me, the content that I've been making lately and the comments that I get from certain people in the Black community just being upset because I don't just go with their narrative. And I don't know where anybody got this idea that I'm supposed to just go with these narratives because other people are of color as well, which is the most politically correct way to put that. And, if you don't know about me and race and the way that all that worked out, there were points where I really was against white people using the N-word in any context. And, I'm very honest about my evolution in becoming the kind of person that I am now and having the points of view that I have. But what eventually happened with me, and it's also because I was included in a fair amount of this because I'm a person of color, was that it was when microaggressions got introduced. And if you guys aren't familiar with microaggressions, in my opinion, microaggressions are just taking sensitivity to the extreme and wanting people of other races, namely white, even though Latino will be included sometimes, or different races that aren't being sensitive enough, or people of different races that aren't being sensitive enough to ethnic, what would you say? Ethnic sensitivities or ethnic... because microaggressions would be like saying somebody's well-spoken. Microaggressions would be like just anything that can be taken as a slight, even if that's not the way it's meant. And because I've always worked in redneck clubs doing stand up, which I haven't been doing stand up lately, and I know that some people are asking me when I'm going to do another show, I'll probably set something here up or set something up here in Phoenix kind of soon. I've got a tattoo and piercing shop that wants to sponsor me, and I'm open to doing it, but I don't want to travel right now at all. I have no interest in traveling. I've got a little dog that needs me, if you guys didn't know. And, I really don't resent that. And I also don't use it as a crutch when it comes to my little puppy. But, do I want to spend a lot of time with her? Do I enjoy that we always sleep together? Because, I try to make it a point to sleep in my bed at least a couple nights a week, but usually we just fall asleep on the couch. And I'm not a person that likes noise when I'm sleeping, or I don't care if there's noise, like as far as stuff outside or that kind of stuff, because, lately I've been sleeping at night, which is kind of different for me. Because, my version of night usually is 6 or 7 in the morning, sometimes as late as between 8 and 10. And I was trying to make that my schedule for a little while there, was go to sleep by 10 in the morning and then wake up at 4, and then I've missed most of the heat of the day. But I just eventually decided I'll just sleep when I want to sleep. And if I decide I want to take a nap in the middle of the day or in the middle of whatever my day is, then I'll do that. And so, I just, I woke up at 6 a.m. I think it was 6 a.m. today. And like I said, now it's 7 and I'm recording this. I had planned to record this last night, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I think I would have been more tired, which I know I just yawned a second ago, but that's just me waking up and getting my body in gear. But what I was going to say is, I try to sleep in my bed a couple nights a week, but for the most part, me and my puppy just fall asleep on the couch. And I don't like noise while I'm asleep as far as the TV going. So when I say I fall asleep on the couch, I fall asleep on the couch like some people fall asleep in the bed. I'll turn off the TV and I'll just roll over, and my puppy has where she lays down, because this is obviously the couch we sleep on. And so she sleeps on the inside part and I sleep on the outside. And the reason she sleeps on the inside, I know this, it's weird, or it's cute to me, honestly. When you have dogs, since you have them since they're tiny, usually, because I have only ever had one rescue, but I for the most part just have had puppies until they, grew into being big kids. But what made them the way that they are, why they're afraid of certain things or why they don't like certain things. And with baby girl, it was when she was a little tiny puppy. She was big enough to, handle jumping off the couch if she wanted to or needed to. But she was sleeping on the outside of the couch. And I was obviously on the inside. And I rolled over, and it caused her to move in her sleep. And, we were both asleep. And then the next thing I know, she hits the floor. And she landed on her feet because, I woke up as it was happening and I saw her land on her feet. But then she didn't trust sleeping on the outside of the couch anymore, which I don't blame her. And it doesn't bother me anyway, She's such a tiny baby that it's whatever, Wherever she decides to sleep, I'm going to be able to be comfortable around it, except for my legs. That's where I draw the line. It's when this little girl tries to sleep on my legs, which she tries all the time. And it's just I can't move my legs if you're asleep on them. So, and life is overall going really well. So there's really no reason for me to go on the road right now. That's the other thing. It's I get that, some people would like to see me But I don't really know that that's the best way to spend my time right now. It's not just about wanting to be with my dog, and it's not just about wanting to be in my place, even though those are huge incentives to me staying home. I do like being in my place. I do like spending time with my dog. But at the same time, I don't see a point in me being out. And I don't want to have to eat at restaurants. And I don't want to, my best friend is coming to town next week. And the three of us, because I told you guys, there's Thomasina, there's Derequisha, and there's me. And we are going to a really nice restaurant called Durant's to have steak. And I'm so glad for it because I love a good ribeye. That's what I love to have. And the only thing better than having a ribeye is having a ribeye that I didn't have to make. And I've been so much craving ribeye that I thought about just taking myself out on a date. And then Thomasina called or messaged us in the group and was like, I'm going to be in town. And so, do you guys want to go get some dinner? Do you guys want to hang out? And Derequisha is the fat girl of the bunch. Which we call Derequisha the fat girl of the bunch, but really he's not. But the reason, I'll tell you guys why. It's because Derequisha does love food. He works out, he goes hiking all the time. He lives a very active lifestyle. But God bless America if this boy does not always have some kind of food with some kind of sauce, or one time it was pizza, and boy did we have a good time. But in his stories, it's always food. There's always like sauce, and there's always food, and so we will share that and dancing at the gym, which is another thing that we make fun of him for, is dancing at the gym. It'll be like him like dancing, and we're just like, we're gonna call your gym and tell them that they need to get a hold of you. They need to suspend your membership is what they need to do. And so we always tease Derequisha about food, but it comes in really handy because Derequisha will look at Yelp reviews and look at menus and stuff like that. So when I go hang out with Derequisha, which we went to see the Odyssey like last week, which I'll talk about that in a second. But like if we're planning on going to get something to eat before or after, and I want to try something different, not just one of the regular spots, because Derequisha loves Culver's. I don't know if you guys have Culver's where you're at, but Culver's is like a burger shop that has custard, and it's pretty good. I do like Culver's, but sometimes I don't feel like going to Culver's because that's like a staple for us, and especially for him. He loves the custard. And so if I tell him, can you please pick something for us to eat, and just give him a general direction, like, I guess I am Asian direction. Give him a general direction, and like as far as Italian or Mexican or whatever I decide to say, or we decide on. He'll find us a place that's actually really good. There was this Italian spot we went to not too long ago where they had these ridiculously amazing roasted Brussels sprouts. So good. And I don't know what all is in them. I would imagine there's balsamic because they had like a sweet flavor to them. But just a really, really good Italian spot. The only thing that I didn't like was they didn't have veal, which I shouldn't be eating veal anyway because the way that they treat those, it's just a terrible. Yeah, I had sworn off veal a couple years ago, and then I fell off the wagon. But I just really love veal. Veal Parmesan is my jam. But yeah, we went to see Odyssey last week, which, if you guys don't know, that's the one that Elliot Page is in, formerly the artist formerly known as Ellen Page. And you know, the deal with that is everybody was melting down because they were saying it's so woke. And I obviously am in that space that gets to hear all of that, because, you know, all of that is kind of covered in what I do, even though I choose not to talk about certain subjects, because they really just don't interest me like that in order to do like the editing, the research, the adding the clips and all that stuff. Some topics don't really interest me that way. And Odyssey, I still haven't decided, which I know it's getting like late to talk about that. But if I decide to talk about something even a couple months, like I'm sure you guys have noticed by watching my channel, I don't really always care about being that up to the minute guy, because for me things don't always work that way. A lot of times I need to marinate on the things that I want to talk about, because it's like not only is there doing the research, but it's also like, what am I bringing to the conversation? Because if I'm just saying the same thing that 10 other creators are saying, what's the point of me even putting out the video? They can get that from the 10 other creators. And so it's like, what really, and that doesn't mean I go out of my way to be contrarian. No, that's the other, like, you know, you could say tenet it has to hit, is it also has to be something that I can bring an original as well as authentic spin to, because I don't want to say things just to say them. Because if you, this is what a lot of people don't understand in content creation, and I think that this is where a lot of people end up getting kind of jammed up in a way, and then they end up like having negative experiences online. Because when people get mad at me for saying things that I say, I don't mind defending them or just letting them roll, because I know that I have a reason for the reason that I said, or for the way that I said those things. And I also know that if I had to defend them, that I could. I'd just be like, this is why I said that particular thing. This is why I feel the way that I feel. It wouldn't be hard for me. But it's if you're saying things that you really don't mean, and in some cases are just based off of other people's opinions, which I've seen a lot of that online. People will be like, oh, this is the popular thing that people in my space are saying, so I'm going to say just a different version of that, or that in my own wording, and make that my content. And so, you know, so that's why I say that it has to be something that I feel or have authentic feelings about, where it's like, okay, this is why I feel. Like, I can tell you guys, as far as the Odyssey went, because people were upset because Elliot Page, who's trans, was in it and playing a man, and they had created this character that wasn't actually in the poem, The Odyssey, by the name of Sinan. That was the name of Elliot Page's character. And so people were bothered by that. And I really didn't care that much. And if I'm going to go do something, because I told Derek Quisha that, because Derek, like I told you guys have heard me say it before, Derek is lefty, you know, he's very left leaning. And so when he said that, you know, he wanted to go see Odyssey, I didn't know that he meant, you know, he wanted us to hang out, you know, which, like, me and Derek are sisters, where you know, like, just platonic gay friends. So I'm not talking about, like, you know, he wanted to have a date with me. Don't be gross, you guys. We're not lesbians. But it was one of those situations where he had said that he was interested in seeing the Odyssey on the group chat, and then I was like, you know, people are saying that it's woke, so it's probably not doing that well, which it turns out, according to reports, that it is doing really well. It made a lot of money, to over 200 million in its first week, which means that it's already covered its cost. So now everything's just, you know, money over that. And so I told him that, people were saying it was woke, and then we had that like quick back and forth where he was like, oh, well, I was going to say if you wanted to see it, but apparently it's too woke. And I was like, no, I'll go see it. And if I say I'm going to go see something, I'm not going to be the person. This is what I won't be in life. And I bring this up because there was a woman I saw a couple weeks ago. I told you guys I went with a friend of mine named Tom to go see Ben Bankus. And Ben Bankus is an edgy comedian. He's really funny. He's really good. He's really clever. I love his writing. I met him in Austin, but just briefly. It's not like we're besties. We had a quick chat after the show. It was like, I really like Ben Bankus. I really like what he's doing. I really like how he's doing it. But there were people at the show that were too politically correct to be there, like one woman in particular. And you could tell that her husband, who was sitting across from her, because it's comedy club seating, which they pack you into a comedy club, unless you pay a lot and there's that available, you're probably not going to have your own private booth or your own private table at a comedy club. You're just jammed in with a bunch of other people. And we paid extra, so we got to go to the front and sit in a little more of an exclusive type situation, but we were still sitting near other people, which I'll tell you guys a quick thing that happened at the end of the show. There was a guy sitting next to me that had no idea that I was a comedian and just thought I was a brown guy. And I don't say that in a negative way. He was very friendly. He was one of these guys, what was it? He came from Yuma, and he brought this girl with him that, because we chatted with them when we sat down. The way that worked out, I don't know if I told you guys the way that worked out, but what happened with the Ben Bankus show was where they originally sat us was at a table that was like a high top, but it was like a high top bench type situation. So there was a bunch of people, and the guys that were sitting at that table looked at me and Tom, and they kind of gave us like a snotty look because, they'd already been sitting there for a while, and then the servers just bring us over. And they did give us a snotty look. I'm not a person who's looking to be slighted in all cases. Technically, I don't even pay attention to people usually. But they did kind of look down their noses at us. And then in my head, I was just like, okay, I'm not liking this at all. So I just went back over to the hostess and asked them if there was anywhere else we could sit. And then they were like, yeah, but you'd have to pay extra to go to those seats. So we went to the other seats, and it was a much better situation. And I saw those guys hating when they saw us going to the front because, we got to go to the front. We were like, what would be technically second row is the way that it worked out. And then, we were eating and having a merry time. But there was a girl that was sitting the next table over, and it looked like a situation where her husband was probably a Ben Bankus fan, and she was just the whole time and she had to make it clear to everyone around. I was sitting, like I said, a table over, and she had to make it clear to all of us that she just didn't like this. It wasn't her, just, ugh. And it was like, lady, can you just either be fun or go outside? I'm sure your husband probably gave you the option of not coming to the show. As those are the people that are the worst, where they decide to go and then they want to let everybody know that they don't approve of what's happening. And it's like, well, why are you here? Like, what is your purpose in life all the way around when you're that person? So my point is, I didn't want to be that person with Derek Quisha, and I refuse to be that person with anybody. So if I go to watch the Odyssey, even though I've heard that, it's woke and it's ruining the, what it actually is, I'm not a reader like that anyway. So I haven't read the Odyssey. It's like 500 pages. I'm not that guy. Maybe eventually one day I will. It did pique my curiosity. I'll be honest about that. So maybe one day I will. But for right now, that's not on the docket. It's not what I'm doing. But what I'm not gonna do is show up and then be like, Elliot Page, Lupita Nyong'o. Well, here's the deal with that. Elliot Page is in the movie for such a brief amount of time that it only can bother you so much anyway. And my thinking was, okay, if I'm supposed to buy into Elliot Page as a man for this particular role, then I'll buy into Elliot Page, or I'll try my best to buy into Elliot Page as a man. But it turned out that Elliot Page, because he's such a little man, and because his face is still that of a female, every time I looked at Elliot Page, I just thought, it's a little dyke. And I kept trying to tell myself, like, no, that's supposed to be a man. And then they'd flash to his face, and again, I'd be like, little dyke. And so I wasn't able to buy Elliot Page as that. But like I said, he was in the movie for such a brief amount of time. And also, I'm there for the action. I'm there for the costumes. I'm there for the fight scenes. That's what I'm there for. I'm there for, the scenery. That was really nice. But to tell you guys the truth, it was a 2 hour and 50 minute movie. And an hour into it, I was really felt like, can we move this along? And it wasn't to the point where it's like, I have to leave. Because if I had to leave, I'm sure Derek Quisha would understand. And I would go busy myself in the mall because, it was at a mall that we went to go see it. So I could go busy myself at the mall and Derek Quisha could continue to watch. But even Derek was like, because I looked at my watch and it was an hour in. Well, 56 minutes, I believe, was when I looked at my watch. And I just remember thinking, yeah, we need to move this along. It needs to pick up the pace because it's kind of not completely boring, but it is dragging a bit. And Derek looked at me and we had a quiet conversation. We didn't bother anybody around us. And it wasn't like we went on chatting for a while, but it was just a quick, are you enjoying this? And it was like, it's okay, but I'm not loving it. And then, from then on, we were kind of watching our watches because I have a habit of setting my stopwatch on my phone when I go to any movie. It doesn't matter because I want to know, in the last 15, 20 minutes of a movie, that's usually where the real action is and where you figure out, the mysteries involved with with the plot or whatever that have been going throughout the storyline. And so I want to know if I have time to go to the bathroom or not also is another thing. And so I always set my stopwatch so that I know where we're at in the movie. And at a point, Derek decided to set his too when, we realized how long it was not only going to go, but also how slow paced it was at the beginning. And there was some action in that first hour, but it just wasn't really enough to keep a person like me interested. When it came to Lupita Nyong'o, she played Helen of Troy, which, that part I do know the story, Helen of Troy being the face to launch 1,000 ships, supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. And Lupita Nyong'o is just not that. I don't have a problem with the fact that there's race swapping and Lupita Nyong'o was black. I know in one version of, the story or one adaptation where Helen of Troy was portrayed, Orson Welles had cast Eartha Kitt as Helen of Troy. And Eartha Kitt is biracial, technically, but most people, especially in those days, would have considered her to be black. Because if you don't know Eartha Kitt, she was back in what, the 50s, 60s, 70s even. That was really her heyday. I think 60s and 70s was really her heyday. But, so it's not like having a black woman play Helen of Troy is a completely foreign idea. And for me, that's not a factor when it came to Lupita Nyong'o. My problem was that Lupita Nyong'o, even at her best, isn't, in my opinion, and I think that if we're all being honest and not seeing through things through a politically correct lens, isn't particularly beautiful. And that bothers me, because if you're going to try to sell me on this is supposed to be the face to launch 1,000 ships, this is the most beautiful woman in the world, then I want it to be a beautiful actress in order for that to be viable to me. Like a person that they should have cast, in my opinion, if she had been available and willing to do it, would have been like Rihanna. And I know some of you might be like, I saw Battleship. Rihanna is not a good actress. Congratulations. You and me are the only two people that saw Battleship. So that puts us in a special club. But then on top of it, the role of Helen of Troy in Odyssey really wasn't that big either. It, like, both Lupita Nyong'o and Elliot Page were like glorified cameos. So for the people that really couldn't get past that, like I said, I'm a person that likes a lot of action. And I always know that when I go to the movies to see anything that comes from a book, it's not, or even like, actual nonfiction, or what should be nonfiction, I know that they're always going to really take a lot of liberties and artistic license. And so it's going to be adapted to a point where it's not going to be exactly what you want it to be. And that's something that you're just going to have to deal with. So for the people that were so bothered by that, it's kind of like, to me, you're as petty as anybody else, because none of this stuff really matters when it comes down to it. Of course, the story is going to be adapted. Of course, they're going to have cast people in things or to do things that you're not necessarily a fan of, or to be characters that you're like, okay, that's bad casting right there. That person didn't need to be in the movie. And I get that. I get that if you have a problem with Elliot Page being shoehorned in just so that they could have some sort of trans representation, which is what that looked like to me, I can see how you would choose not to go. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to turn it into your life's mission to be like, I refuse to go because I'm such an upstanding character when it comes to making sure that Hollywood knows that I won't put up with their wokeness. And it's like, girl, just stay home. That was good enough. You not giving them your money was enough of a statement that everything else didn't matter. Like, nobody cares anyway. When it comes down to it, like, these people try to do these things where they're like, just want to shout it from the rooftops that I want everybody to know that because it was woke and I won't give in to woke Hollywood, that, okay, well, long story short, you save $20. We went to a matinee because last week I was obviously here for the live chat. And so I had to be here by 6 p.m. And it was a 3-hour and 50-minute movie. So we went to the 2:20 p.m. showing. And so, got out around, 5:50 or something like that. or 5 something, and then I immediately came over here, and then I went back over to Derek's, and then we ate and hung out for a little while after the chat here after watching the premiere. And so, you know, I enjoyed them. Like, once it was all said and done, I thought it was cute. It was an okay movie, but I definitely would not recommend to anybody unless you're just a fan of IMAX, because, you know, it was shot in IMAX. Unless you're just a fan of IMAX, there is absolutely no reason for you to go watch that movie, 2 hour and 50-minute movie, in a theater. Like, I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I had just watched it at home on streaming. And Derek agreed with me. He also was in the same camp. Like, yeah, this is the kind of movie that you can watch on your TV and in between get some food, you know, like you have access to your kitchen, obviously. Get some food, take a break, maybe go outside, smoke a cigarette, come back, finish it up. Yeah, it'll take you 5 hours to watch it, but it'll be a more enjoyable 5 hour experience than it was as a 2 hour and 50-minute experience in the actual theater, or at least that's my opinion. That's really the way I felt about it. Like I said, if you're a fan of IMAX though, and you just want to hear the sounds and see things on that particular screen, then do that. But we didn't even get to go to an IMAX because the IMAX was going to be way too far. Like, the only IMAX that was available here in our, well, even close to our area would have been probably, I think that's like a 30-minute drive. Because if you don't know, Phoenix is huge. That's one of the things that I don't love about Phoenix. Like, you know, Austin, I guess you could say Austin's big. It's spread out, you know, but most of the stuff that you're going to do in Austin, if you're living in actual Austin, is kind of in a small area, you know, so, but the Phoenix metro area is pretty spread out, and so it would have been like going to South Phoenix, which would have taken about half an hour for us to get there from our respective areas, and neither of us were that serious about it. I'm sure there would be something that we would go watch in IMAX, because why not? But, you know, if you're back, you just jump down. You just jump down. Oh, my baby. They're gonna cost you kisses. This little animal. But yeah, so, you know. What? What? My baby girl. You know, she gets, I get on her nerves as much as she gets on mine. That's our relationship. It's the way it works, huh, puppy? Yep. See, she said, mm-hmm. And she's fine with it, and I'm fine with it. And also, you know, the one thing I've liked about the two dogs that I've had, which is really that I've, you know, had are Bijou and Baby Girl, is that they genuinely do enjoy their alone time. And if I decide to skip a day at the gym, or I just have to be home for a couple of days, there definitely is very much a don't you have somewhere to be energy from these dogs, you know? And so Baby Girl gives me that same kind of, like, when I go to the gym, she looks relieved, sort of like, okay, now I get the house to myself for a little while. And I like that. And I like being able to give her that, you know, like, that's something I have enjoyed about, like I said, having both her and Bijou, is that it's always been where I could tell that they did like their time away from me. And, you know, me and baby girl, I joke about her like that, you know, we get on each other's nerves or whatever, and we do. But at the same time, I know that we very much do love each other. And I know that, you know, there's a reason that she always wants to sit with me, or like right now when she's begging to get back on the couch, even though she just jumped down for a second. And I don't even know for what. Because I know I saw what she did. I could see her out of the corner of my eye even while I was talking. She literally jumped down. She went to her bed for a second, did not lay down in the bed, just went over to it, didn't grab a toy, didn't play with anything, didn't go behind me, which is where her water is, and just decided to get right back on the couch. It was it was a pointless errand. There was no reason at all for her to do that. And this little dog jumps vertically so high, like, because, you know, when I take her over to my parents' house so she can play with her best friend Egwin, my parents' dog, which, yes, his name is Egwin because my niece named him when she was a baby, and my mom said, you can name the puppy, and my niece said Egwin. Well, technically, my great niece said Egwin, and my mom said Egwin, and she said Egwin. And so it's not Edwin, it's Egwin. And I call him Little Eggy or Mr. Egg. That's what I call him. And he's a very cute dog, and I do love Mr. Egg. That's usually what Mr. Egg, when I walk in the house, I'll be like, Mr. Egg, and then he starts dancing, and I love Mr. Egg. But when I take her over to hang out with Mr. Egg, and when I go to grab her, because, you know, my parents have a doggy playpen set up where it blocks them from scratching on the sliding glass door. Which, you know, they're not going to be able to make, with their little nails, they're not really going to be able to make marks in a sliding glass door. But it's very annoying when you have them, when they get annoyed or when they get like anxious and want to come inside and start scratching the window. That's a very annoying sound. And sometimes they'll decide earlier than we want to bring them in. And so it's just better that they have the little doggy playpen like right there. So it keeps them from actually getting a sliding glass door. But my point is, she will jump almost as high as the doggy playpen is. She can't clear it, but she will jump that high. So she can definitely jump on this couch if she just could figure out the springing forward part. Like, she's got the vertical, now she just needs to figure out the springing forward. But, you know, I think it kind of works out to my benefit that she hasn't figured out how to jump. I'm sure she will at some point. And maybe I'll even make it a point to teach her sometime. But I think for right now, it works out to my benefit that she can't. Because sometimes I don't want her on the couch at that moment. I'm just like, yeah, you don't need to be up here. And that's when I'll just tell her to go to her bed. And she will reluctantly go to her bed after trying several times to force me to, you know, she does the puppy dog eyes. She does the like puzzled, like, why can I not? What is the problem? But, you know, it's overall a cute experience. But, you know, I got to tell you guys, I put out a lot of content in the last week. And I like when I actually feel like putting out a lot of stuff. You know, I like when it doesn't feel like work to me, which the editing part, I'm honest with you guys about that. That's always going to be work just because it is, you know, I don't even like to allow a breath to happen, which I know I let some, you know, because sometimes it goes with the flow. Sometimes I'm just tired of editing breaths out. But for the most part, I don't let myself breathe. And also, I feel like that helps with the pace in a lot of cases where people are like, yeah, because otherwise, it's just exhausting. You guys hear me talking right now. I mean, I know that nobody minds, but why do I keep yawning? I literally just woke up. I'm not tired. I don't want to go back to sleep. But you guys hear me talk right now, and it's, it's a different style, so it's conversation, and everybody knows that, everybody expects that. But at the same time, like, when you want to just get some information and you just want to watch a quick video, you don't want to sit through a lot of breathing and wincing and whatever else is going to happen in between. So if I just cut all that stuff out, and that's what makes editing take so long, is because you'll do the editing where it's like you add in all the stuff that you want to add in, you add in whatever, graphics as well, whatever you're going to do, you do. But then, if you're a person like me, then it comes to the tedious part of just cutting out every single breath. And so that really takes a lot longer than most people would even think about. And even though I know that it's kind of a thankless job in the way that people don't pay attention to it, I think that it is something that people notice on a subconscious level and appreciate, where it's kind of like, okay, at least this keeps the pace, where... Like I said, with Odyssey, for example, I honestly feel like that movie could have been an hour and a half of plenty of action, and it would have felt like it moved faster. And yeah, the people that obviously were familiar with the poem and wanted a little more of that, even if it was, like I said, adapted in a particular way, I think would have really lost it, because they would have been like, okay, this left out so much. Because I've seen other videos, one person that's really melting down about it, I don't know if you guys watch Sydney Watson, but I like Sydney Watson. I don't remember the name of her channel. It might just be Sydney Watson, but, I like a lot of her commentary. And she's made a lot of videos, well, probably like 3 or 4 videos on the Odyssey. And at a point, it just gets sort of like, Sydney, get over it. You okay, we get it. It's so woke, and I just feel like, Sydney, okay, we get it, all right? We get it. It's not what you wanted. It ain't gonna be. You knew that from the first video you made about it. And at this point, you're just running the clock. You just want to get the clicks because it is getting a lot of views for you. So just admit that and stop pretending like you have more to say about this subject that you've already said enough about. Like the other day, she did a whole review of it because, there was the first, it's a woke disaster, and it's like, it just keeps going. As far as Sydney Watson, I gotta admit, like, I know that her fans probably love that about her, so I would never try to tell her, and I wouldn't show up in her comments telling her, like, you shouldn't talk about this, or that's enough videos on it. Like I said, if I don't like something, I just won't watch it. And I was cleaning, because I did a full, what's it called, like an actual cleaning of my apartment the other day, because like you tidy up a lot, and you definitely do clean your floors like regularly and stuff. But if you're anything like me, when it comes to moving the furniture and everything like that, that happens once a month, every month and a half, that I'm actually gonna move everything and like use the, what's it called on the rug, the Carpet Fresh. I don't know what brand I use, but you guys know what I mean, where you sprinkle it and let it sit for 15 minutes, then you vacuum it all up. And then the reason that I had to be outside a lot yesterday, well, not yesterday, the day before, which was like maybe 113, 115, it was miserable having to do this, but I had to do it, was because baby girl, I told you guys this before, like I put grass down, artificial grass on the balcony. And so what happens over time is that will begin to smell if you don't take care of it, because obviously she's going potty on it regularly. And I do a once every couple of weeks where I use cleaning vinegar, a solution of that, as well as water, and then, spray the whole thing, and then go back and have to, like flush it out with water. And so that, just plain water, so that the cleaning vinegar doesn't irritate her paws. And so that does a relatively good job, or not really, it does a pretty good job. But over time, if you just let it continue to build up, then it's going to really start to smell. And I have the option of being able to, because it's two grass pieces that are connected so that it looks like one. And I have the luxury of having parents that live like, I think they're technically 1.4 miles away from me is what it is. And so, what I did was I went ahead and grabbed the grass pads and, like I said, they cover the whole balcony. Like it looks like a little yard. It's kind of cute. I do like that part of my apartment and what I did to it. But, I don't have them glued down in any way, obviously. And so what I do is I went ahead and rolled them up and loaded them in my dad's truck, borrowed his truck, brought it over here, loaded them up, took them back over there. Then I hung them over this little rack that my parents have and sprayed them really good, both sides, with water, high pressured, using the attachment for the hose, and just high pressured water to get as much of the stuff out of there. Like I said, front and back on both of them, to get as much of the, built up potty out of them as possible. And then I bought 2 gallons of enzymatic spray, which I use the enzymatic spray on occasion outside too. But I bought 2 gallons of enzymatic spray and put that in one of the bug killer type things, which was brand new, so it didn't have any residue of any, like, what's it called, bug poison or anything like that. And I just went ahead and sprayed, like, double treated both of them, and now they're as fresh as a daisy. But all of that is a real outdoor process, like when I'm spraying them, I do that out in the sun. When I'm, hosing them down, I should say, I do that out in the sun so that a fair amount of it drips out and is able to dry. So, because you want it to be kind of damp when you do the enzymatic cleaner, when you're adding or spraying the enzymatic cleaner. And so you don't want it to be soaking wet, because then obviously it's going to break down too much. And then you also want it to be able to dry, so it's still got to stay outside, but at least you're in the shade at that point. But it was so hot and sweaty and disgusting, and I just hated my life for that little while, because I know some people like that sauna feel when they go outside and, at least, well, this is where Arizona kind of lies to you, because everybody's always like, it's a dry heat. Well, at least it's a dry heat. Well, it's not so bad because it's a dry heat. But this time of year, which is monsoon season, it's not really a dry heat. Like the other day, it was like 30% humidity, which is a decent amount of humidity. And that will happen during monsoon season, because during monsoon season, like, moments like right now are breaks between the rain. Like I told you yesterday that we had a little bit of rain. And I can feel in the air. I can feel it calling in the air. But you can feel it in the air that there's going to be more rain coming. So there's still humidity. And until we get that big break, because what happens in monsoon season is usually you'll have these muggy periods like right now. And then all of a sudden you'll have like a solid week, 5 to 7 days, where it just rains. And there'll be like, a couple hours break here and there, like that kind of thing. But it's just a lot of rain, and things will, in some cases, flood. And, because people in Arizona aren't used to that, there'll be a lot of bad decisions made. Like sometimes people don't understand. Sometimes it's better just to stay where you're at. Sometimes it's better not to try to brave the elements, not to try to show us your driving skills, just to let it do what it do. Because, It's what it is in Arizona in monsoon season. Well, we have that happen anytime it rains here, or anytime we get a lot of rain in Arizona, because people aren't used to it. And people just do stupid things. Like, they'll not realize that, yeah, that road is actually flooded. Don't drive across it or try to in your Toyota. Like, you're in a vehicle, a small car, a compact. Like, it's not meant for driving through water. You're going to flood your car. You're going to end up stuck. And so, Arizona has stupid motorist laws, and that's literally what they're called. It's like the stupid motorist laws. And so there are ways in Arizona that if you get yourself trapped in a situation because you were being stupid, you will be charged for the emergency services that have to be provided to you. Because you should be smarter than that. That's the way it works. And I have to agree. I admit, I agree with, I do very much understand why those laws are in place after years and years of always being connected to Arizona. Because even when I haven't, lived here full time, I've always been very much connected to Arizona and what's going on here. Politics I don't always pay attention to in Arizona because, especially lately, I think Arizona, and I'm going to start really talking about this more, using my voice to kind of help guide what's going on in Arizona as much as I can. But I think Arizona is turning a little bit too left-leaning. It just... And that's not a good way for Arizona to go, because that's one of the things that people like me have always loved about Arizona, is that it is very much conservative, but in a good way. Because Arizona has that mix of being conservative, but then there's also a lot of Latinos. And so it's a good balance in Arizona. And a fair amount of Latinos are conservative as well. But I think that when you have, because Texas is a similar situation. And it's always weird to me when people act like Texas and Arizona are so racist. Because really, and I had somebody get mad at me for saying this on a video, because it's like, we couldn't really be that racist if we wanted to in either state. Because obviously I lived in both states and I very much enjoyed living in both states. But, when it comes to Texas and Arizona, there's so much Latino influence that it's really hard for it to be like what you can truly call racist, because you're always going to have that, that Latino influence to balance things out. And conservative, even though some people will try to make it seem like that, is not always white. And a lot of conservative people don't even care about that in any negative kind of way. It really is the left that is obsessed with race, and that's because identity politics are such a big thing for them, so they have to be. And in order to have the proper enemy that they need, they have to paint the right as being this really conservative, borderline Nazi type situation, when that's not even what it is. When it's just I don't even really know where you're getting this idea. Because the only thing that the right is guilty of, in my opinion, or would be guilty of as far as the left goes, if they were really to look at it and not just through their "we need you to be racist" lens, is that they don't want to pay attention to that. And I don't think that they should in 2026. I don't think that race should be a big driver in the way that we do everything in 2026. I don't think that there's a need for DEI. For me, DEI, what it looked like to me was a bunch of people getting jobs that they shouldn't have because of the color of their skin or because of their identity, as far as being trans or, LGBT in some way, queer as they would call it, or whatever it is that, people think that makes them special. it made unqualified people get positions that they shouldn't be in just because they fit into that DEI quota. Same with affirmative action. You know, in 2026, in my opinion, these things aren't necessary. And when people of color get mad at me for saying that, I feel like you're just telling on yourself because you're not good at your job. And that's fine that you're not good at your job. And I get it that you found a loophole in a way to like make this, you know, make this work for you. But at the same time, understand that every once in a while, the jig is just going to be up and people are going to be tired of that. And it's not going to end up lasting forever. So once they end it, just shut your mouth about it, or like stop with the like, oh, we need this and we're going to boycott them. You know what? Boycott them. Do it. It's the same with me with the Odyssey people. It's kind of like at a point, you just do it and shut your mouth. Nobody needs to hear you the whole time. Stay unbothered.